You're just somebody who is a real estate investor and you're trying to share that information with everybody else, kind of like myself. I would say the platform that you choose to go on really depends on what you're most comfortable with. You can be successful in any platform, but some are easier than others depending on your personality type. If you're someone who really likes writing, Twitter may be a great place for you, or starting a blog may be a great place for you. If you're someone who can tell stories, maybe TikTok would be a good platform for you because that platform really loves when people just share stories. If you are someone who is very visual, you take nice pictures and things like that, Instagram, YouTube, those could be good platforms that you can really thrive on. So I think the platform, you should lean into your strengths and see which platform makes most sense for the strengths that you currently have. But I feel like content creation is, everyone can be successful at it, but you just really need to be consistent, put a lot of time and effort into it. And you just need to start, honestly, because the only way you can do better is if you actually start and, continuously post, and then you'll get better from there.
Are you looking for ways to get started investing in real estate and trying to land your first deal? Or are you a seasoned investor looking for ways to help raise capital? One way you could achieve both goals is by building your brand. This week, we sat down with Reni to talk about the importance of having a strong online brand and strategies for getting started. You're listening to the Black Wealth Effect podcast, where we're all about inspiring the next generation of Black Canadian real estate investors to succeed financially. If you're tuned in, that means you're hungry to take action and build wealth outside of your 9 to 5. We'll be sitting down with Black real estate investors, entrepreneurs, and allies to discuss a diverse set of topics to help you along your investing journey. Let's get started. You're tuned in to another episode of the Black Wealth Effect podcast. I'm your host, Mario. Please like, subscribe, and comment on the show so we can keep bringing you this great content. Our guest this week is Reni, Odetoyinbo. Reni, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Mario. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yes, I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to have you and definitely delve into your areas of expertise in all things content creation and social media as well. To start, as I just mentioned, we know you're a content creator and you're passionate about many topics, including financial literacy and strategic marketing. Can you talk a little bit about where that passion kind of stems from? And as well, just touch on the importance of focusing on branding in terms of building long-term wealth.
Yeah, so my passion for content creation, I don't know, I feel like I've always created content just for fun. Ever since I was in high school, I've been making videos. I used to take pictures of my outfits of the day every time I went to church, for example, and would post them online and make them look cool like that. I had a Tumblr blog back when that was cool as well. So I feel like I've always created content. And then in 2023, I made a big purchase. I purchased my first house. And then I was like, I could probably share this online. My friends and family were telling me to share it online. And I always wanted to be a content creator, to be honest. It was something that I saw other creators doing. I was like, I would love to do that. But I didn't know what value I could add. And then when my family and friends started encouraging me to just share more about my home buying process and how I did it at such a young age, I just decided to do it. And I went for it and started my YouTube channel on May 18th, 2020. Now it's been 3 years. I'm now a full-time content creator and I love it. I feel like it changed my life for sure.
That's fantastic. That's a great story. And we're definitely going to delve into a few pieces that you just touched on there later in the conversation. As I mentioned, I know you're very big on personal brand. Can you talk about from a real estate investor's perspective, can you talk about why that's important and how that would add value to someone starting off as an investor?
Add value to their content creation or
add value to their business and just building their portfolio?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So I guess it depends what type of investor you are. But if you are trying to, maybe you have like, I don't know, a property management company, or maybe you are trying to attract other investors to work with you or something like that. I feel like the brand that you put out is how people perceive you, right? So a lot of people don't realize, but whether you think it or not, you have a personal brand. So it's really important to be the one who's in control of crafting your personal brand. So I think that it's really important for everyone, not just real estate investors, but literally everybody, to work on their personal brand and think of, how do I want to be perceived by the world? Just because it dictates how people treat you, it dictates the opportunities that you get, it dictates just what people know you for. So again, like every opportunity that's come to me is because I have branded myself as this finance girl, the girl who bought her house at 23, the girl who has been investing since she was 18, all of these things have become part of my personal brand. And it's very intentional and deliberate. Like I purposely put this stuff out there, and it just attracts a whole lot of attention. So for those listening, whether you know your brand or you don't know your brand, you have one. So make sure that you are in control of it and crafting it so that the right opportunities can come to you.
Yeah, definitely wise words to live by. Thanks for sharing that. And like to add, like I think, like as you know, like real estate is a contact sport. And so when you think about social media, and as you touched on, just the magnitude and kind of the reach that you have in like sharing what you're working on, or skill sets that you're even building, definitely opens the door for tons of opportunity as you're growing your portfolio, right?
Definitely, 100%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So once again, for that new investor, like looking to start to build their brand on social media, when you think about kind of the fundamentals, like from a social media perspective, whether that investor is struggling with thinking about content or captions, or like even just what platforms to leverage, like what's some advice you'd give that person?
I guess I would ask them what their actual goals are, for being on social media. Is it to attract more clients, to like maybe like say you have an Airbnb? That's the type of real estate investor who owns Airbnbs. And maybe you're trying to attract clients to stay there. So that would be one way of approaching it. Or maybe it's you're trying to just share information with other people. Maybe you have a property management company and you want to get clients so that they will use your property management company. I feel like there's so many ways to approach it. But let's say you're just somebody who is a real estate investor and you're trying to share that information with everybody else, kind of like myself. I would say the platform that you choose to go on really depends on like what you're most comfortable with. You can be successful in any platform, but some are easier than others depending on your personality type. So if you're someone who really likes writing, Twitter may be a great place for you, or starting a blog may be a great place for you. If you're someone who can tell stories, maybe TikTok would be a good platform for you, because that platform really loves when people just share stories on there. If you are someone who is very visual, you take nice pictures and things like that, Instagram, YouTube, those could be good platforms that you can really thrive on. So I think the platform, you should like lean into your strengths and see which platform makes most sense for the strengths that you currently have. But I feel like content creation everyone can be successful at it, but you just really need to be consistent. You need to put a lot of time and effort into it. And you just need to start, honestly, because the only way you can do better is if you actually start and, continuously post, and then you'll get better from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like what I'm hearing is like the key is just taking action, right? Like, so choosing a platform that you're comfortable with, and whether you're like promoting a deal that you're working on, or like looking to raise capital even, I think like all of those things ring true in those scenarios, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And again, any platform can be successful. It's all about you. And as you said, taking action. You just need to start, because a lot of people I have one-on-one chats with people often, and they're like, I want to start content creation, and I'm like, you just need to start, you can't wait until you're perfect in order to start on social media, or else you will never, ever, ever start. If I look at my first videos that I made, they were horrible. But now the only reason I got better was because I actually made that first video 3 years ago, right? So the moral of the story, just start.
Just get started, yeah. And so like what like once somebody does get started, and even for you, like are there specific like resources or systems that you've built out to like help you like stay consistent and impactful?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I post like 5 days a week, which is a lot. But of course, I am a full-time content creator. So it's my job to post 5 days a week or 6 days a week. But the systems that I've built out are really like, I use Notion, which is an app. I'm not sure if everyone knows it, but it's an app called Notion, and it's on desktop as well. And it's a project management tool where you can plan out like your entire week of content, month of content, etc. So I would say planning out my content really helps me stay consistent. I realize that the times that I'm not consistent is when I haven't planned out my week and I'm just trying to scramble last minute and post something. But when I do take that time on Monday to plan out my entire week, then typically I'm able to actually stay consistent and post those 5 or 6 days a week. Also, always having a list of ideas in your phone is really helpful for you. Like anytime something comes to your mind, just write it down in your phone because there'll be a time when you can't think of any ideas and it's like, oh, what do I post? What do I post? But if you look into your phone, then, you'll see that you have a lot of ideas that you maybe thought of randomly when you were like on a jog one day. And now you can actually utilize that. Another thing, I think people run out of ideas, but another way to find ideas is to just go on, look at what's trending right now. If right now is tax season, for example, you can make content about taxes. If it's financial literacy month, you can make content about any financial literacy topic in general. So I always tell people, look at what is trending right now. You can even use Google Trends, which tells you exactly what is trending at this current time. So those are a few ways that I stay consistent and come up with ideas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are great tips. And like, I personally need to get better at content creation myself. But one of the things like I've leveraged in the past as well, just around that consistency piece, is like having like a virtual assistant support in some form or fashion. And so like I found that extremely helpful, whether you're looking to create your first reel or even just like a regular post on Instagram, like having an assistant that could even potentially, like, depending on where they are in the world, like create that content like while you're sleeping or busy doing something. Like that's extremely helpful when you think about systems, right?
Definitely. Yeah. Outsourcing is key with content creation. If you have the capital to do so, I always say like pay someone who's better than you to do the things that you're not good at. Yeah. Like editing, I've started to outsource that. Although I can do it, I can't do it very quickly. So paying someone who can do it extremely quickly frees up my time to do other things.
Yeah. I love that. Okay. And so you touched on it at the beginning of the episode, but talk to me about if we switch gears and actually from a real estate perspective, just talk about your journey as an investor. Mm-hmm. Talk to me about that first purchase, maybe just share like property details, the process you kind of went through, and any key learnings and results as well that you saw.
Yeah. So I've been investing in the stock market since I was 18 years old. And my dad taught me how to invest when I was 18 years old. I was very fortunate that I invested in Shopify back in a very long time ago. And Shopify was about $200 at the time, or $190. Like it would go between those ranges. So I was just buying it every 2 weeks, just buying more and more and more. And then by the time 5 years later, when I was 22 years old or 23 years old, it was about $60,000 that was in my portfolio because I had been consistently investing in it. So the Shopify stock had gone from like $200 to over $1,000 per share. And then one day my dad was like, oh, how much money do you have in your portfolio now? And I was like, oh, like I have like $60,000, $70,000 in my portfolio. And he was like, what? What are you doing? He's like, you should put this in real estate. And I was like, no, Dad, like I do not need to buy a house right now. I live with you guys. Like there's no need for me to buy a house. And he was like, no, you don't have to move anywhere. You just have to like buy a house and invest. And I was like, okay, sure. And I was honestly dragging my feet. I didn't really want to do it. But then he called up his realtor and he was like, Reni's ready to buy a house. And then he basically pushed me into it. And I went to the bank, got my pre-approval pre-qualification. And then I realized how much money how much of a mortgage I could get. So then we went on that journey of purchasing a home. And I live in the Greater Toronto area. It is very expensive here. I don't think $60,000 could buy me much because I had to put down the full 20% because I'm an investor. So I instead was looking at properties in London, in Kitchener, in Guelph, just a little bit outside the Greater Toronto area. We found a property in London and it was a pre-construction property, meaning I had a little more time to actually save up any extra money that I needed. And it was about $345,000 at the time. It is a 4-bedroom property with plus a den or plus a or 3-bedroom plus like a den. It's kind of like an extra bedroom. And it is a condo townhouse based in London, Ontario. So it's 345K at the time. I had to put down $10,000. And then by the time it closed the next year, then I put down the rest of the $60,000. And yeah, I closed on my first house. I was 23 years old at the time. It was really like a really good experience for me. It was very smooth. And I also got tenants right away as well. Actually, it took maybe like a month or so because I was very picky with the tenants that I chose, but I eventually got tenants about a month or so in. And yeah, they've been there ever since. So like it's been a very, very smooth process for me, except, I got a variable mortgage rate and a little pricey, but it's okay. I'm not too worried about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And I'm happy that it was definitely a seamless process. Like, what were some of the key takeaways for you just going through the process? I know with pre-construction, and we've talked about it in the show in the past, but like there could be challenges just going through the process, whether it's like builder related as an example. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, honestly, again, I had a really smooth process, but I would say make sure you do your research on the builder before you purchase any pre-construction property, because pre-construction can be a bit risky, right? It's like you're just buying the contract, you're buying the floor plans, but you don't actually know what you're going to get. So I made sure to look at their previous work, and I asked around my friends and family to see if anybody had had a property with them before. Thankfully, one person had actually used them. So I was like, okay, they had a good experience. I will likely have a good experience. Maybe not you should probably do a bit more research than that, but but I think definitely do a bit of research on the property, the builders beforehand. Also, if you're thinking of investing in the property, one thing I noticed as we were looking through a bunch of different properties, so if it's an investment rather than your principal residence, just make sure that it makes like you're buying in an area that's growing constantly, and maybe an area, if you're going to be renting to a family versus students, make sure that there are good schools in the area. That's something that is very important, especially if it's a pre-con. It may be a brand new area. Nobody knows the schools in the area. So they may be a bit wary about, they don't want their children to live there because they want a specific school. Thankfully, my property was a pre-con, but still close enough to one of the best schools in London for autistic children. So the family that lives in my property, their son actually is autistic. So they're going to stay there for a very long time because, of course, they want him to go to one of the best schools. So I would say make sure you're very strategic about the location of your property. And also, even in the tenants that you choose, right? I made sure to choose a family. London is like a student city, right? There are like 3 schools in London, but I was like, no, I do not want students in my property. It's going to cause me stress. So I chose a family because I was like, they're going to treat my home just like it's their home. And the dad, he like paints the garage. He does all these things in the house. So it's very good for me. Yeah. So those are some of the takeaways that I had. And it's, again, been a very smooth process. And the last thing I would say is parking. So one of the properties I looked at in Kitchener, it was really nice. I really liked it. I actually put down a deposit on it before the London property, but then they were not offering any parking spots for the property, the one that I wanted. The parking was specifically for like the ground level units or something along those lines. So if you are investing, and that may lower the amount of rent you can get because there is only there are no parking spots available, or it may just mean that tenants don't really want to stay there because they need a parking spot, right? So that's something to consider as well. I really wanted a property that had a parking spot because typically we live in the suburbs, they are going to need a parking spot. So yeah, something to consider when you're buying your rental property.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's great advice. Like I love that you did that due diligence around a lot of the economic factors. So you touched on like whether there's a school nearby, as well as the tenant profile is extremely important. So vetting your tenants or the applicants, being strategic about like who you're actually putting into your properties. But yeah, that's great advice. And once again, kudos to you and having a seamless process with the pre-con.
Yeah,
awesome.
it was a really good process. I'm grateful, super grateful.
Mm-hmm. That's great. And so just thinking about like the current market and like with the like real estate hikes that happened and kind of where we're at with the market today. Like what's next for you, if any, like on the real estate front?
You know what? I'm of like an unpopular belief that real estate in the GTA is like very overpriced for what we're getting. Like to me, I'm like, does this make sense for me to actually purchase another property? Like, because I think a lot of people are like, yeah, it's going to appreciate. It's great. But for me, I'm just like, I don't know. It's not an investment because I'm looking for a principal residence for my next property. So I'm kind of like, does this make sense that I should go live in this place that is like a money pit? That's what I'm seeing for a lot of the properties that are in the GTA. So, and I don't really want to live outside the GTA. Like, I don't really care to live in London, Ontario. So this is my dilemma right now. Right now, I don't have a plan to purchase another home. If I do, it'll probably be another investment property, maybe in Calgary or somewhere in Alberta. But I don't think I will be buying anything anytime soon here in Ontario, right now, at least. Yeah, just because I think it's really overpriced. And I've truly been running the numbers and I'm like, renting makes a lot more sense right now. Have you watched How to Get Rich by Ramit Sethi on Netflix?
No, I haven't.
I would recommend it. It's like he's the author of the book, I Will Teach You How to Get Rich. And I really love his work. So then when he came out with this Netflix show, I was like, I have to watch this. And he basically goes and interviews different couples and individuals and basically learns about their financial journey or whatever. So there was this one girl who purchased a house. She was so excited to purchase the house, but it's costing her so much money every single month. And again, it's that idea of like, oh, I own a home, I'm so happy. But like, are you actually running the numbers and seeing how much this is actually costing you? And she actually came to the decision at the end when she ran the numbers that it didn't make sense to keep owning it. So I think if a lot more people actually ran the numbers instead of just thinking of the mortgage payment is less than the rent, sure, but over like everything else is more than the rent. And there was this thing that Ramit said where he said, as a homeowner, the mortgage is the least that you will pay. Whereas as a renter, the rent is the most that you will pay every month. Yeah. And I was like, whoa, what a good analogy. So I'm in no rush to purchase another property right now.
Yeah, I hear you. Definitely, like investing in Toronto specifically, definitely to your point, capital intensive. And so you definitely have to be creative around the types of deals that you're looking at and how you finance them, right? And I've heard similar feedback just in Ontario in general. And like, I know a lot of investors like looking to invest abroad. And so all valid points.
Yeah, I know. I'm sure people who live in other provinces are like, oh, I hate these Torontonians coming, but I went to Edmonton earlier this year and I was like, I see why people are moving here. I understand it. The weather's horrible, but I understand why people are moving here. And I don't know if I'll move there, but buying a house there is something I would definitely consider.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's awesome. And so if we kind of switch gears again a little bit, I want to talk about like the importance of like personal finances. And so, and I know you're an advocate for that. And like we've obviously touched on your experiences, like investing in the stock market. We just talked about real estate. And there's obviously like various ways to build wealth. Like when you think about, once again, like wealth generation, can you talk about the importance of like having like a sound financial plan and like how that could potentially set you up for success?
Yes. I think that having a sound financial plan can not just set you up for success, but also your kids and your kids, right? And I think that's the goal. We all talk about generational wealth, but a lot of us maybe don't even we haven't even started with the basics in order to get there. So I think that just understanding what comes into your account each month and what comes out of your account each month is something that a lot of people overlook. So what like a basic budget would be the beginning of personal finance. How much money are you spending every month? When I first did my budget, which was like, I don't know, maybe I was 19 or 20, I was like, oh my gosh, I spend so much money on food every month. Like I spend more money. Like I just realized that I spent more money on food than I really should be because, there's food at home. So I think that a lot of people see budgeting as restrictive or something that's limiting them. But I really think that people should see it more so as something that empowers you and something that allows you to spend money exactly how you want to spend it. So I'm all for a sound financial plan. I think it can set you up to reach all your financial goals. And I think a lot of people have goals like, I want to buy a house one day. I want to travel to 5 countries every year. I want to do this. I want to do that. But then they don't actually have a plan in place to get to those goals. And then they get frustrated as to why they aren't being able to save up for a house. So I always tell people, you need to put the numbers down on paper, write it out, crunch the numbers. And if you want to buy a house and it's going to cost you $20,000 and you want to buy it in the next 2 years, you need to put away X amount of dollars every single month in order to get there. So yeah, sound financial planning will help you. And it just eases anxiety because you know exactly the steps you need to take in order to get to the goal that you have.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And like it helps you be thoughtful about it, right? And really prioritize what you want to prioritize in life. But yeah, that's great advice. Mm-hmm. Actually, on that note, like just given what you know now and like the experiences you've had to date, like if you were to kind of like, get in a time machine and like speak to your younger self, like what words of wisdom would you give yourself? Or like what's that like number one piece of advice?
You know what? I'd probably tell myself to buy 5 houses back instead of back when they were cheap. I would have told. Obviously, I could not afford that, but I would have. It would have been really nice if I could have bought multiple houses back in the day, back before COVID increased all the prices. A piece of advice. I would say invest even more, even earlier, because actually I started as early as possible. I started at 18. But I would tell myself to even increase the amount of money that I started investing, because of course, we know with investing, there's compounding and my gains would have been so much larger at this point. So I think a lot of people think you need so much money to start, but I started with like $100 a month, $200 a month, and it grew to $60,000. So I know I could have put it away probably like $400 a month at that age because, you know, my expenses were non-existent pretty much at that age. So I wish I put a larger percentage towards my investing, but yeah, that's what I would tell everyone. And if you're someone who's young and listening and you think that your $50 a month, $60 a month is not going to make a difference, it really is. Just start with where you are and then increase as you go along.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's really around like building that knowledge first and foremost early. And then along with just align with our theme for today is just like taking action, right? Even if it's incremental or you don't think it's significant in the moment, it can definitely help in the long run, right?
Yeah, exactly. It looks small now, but over time it will pay off in dividends.
Mm-hmm. Great. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Like this has been a fantastic conversation, really insightful, and I appreciate you sharing your experiences. To round us out, I know you talked about like what's next on the real estate front, kind of your thoughts there. When you think about like your business from a branding perspective, like what's next for you? And then like, what's the best way for our listeners to reach out to you and stay connected?
What's next for me? Well, I am coming out with season 2 of my podcast. So my podcast is called Don't Go Broke Trying. And I teach you how to not go broke trying to live your best life. I interview other guests and get their perspective, especially people who have gone broke and can tell us like the mistakes they made so that we don't make those same mistakes. So this season we have Don't Go Broke Trying to Become an Influencer, Don't Go Broke Trying to Buy Your First House, Don't Go Broke Trying to Invest in the Stock Market, a lot of topics like that. So I think that you will really like it. Season 2 should be coming out shortly, sometime in May of 2023. So I don't know when you're listening to this, but hopefully it's out by the time that you listen to this. And yeah, I'm very excited for the season. I think you will love it. So just follow us on Spotify, we have Twitter, we have all the platforms, Instagram, and it's all at Don't Go Broke Trying on every single platform. And
amazing.
Yeah. If you wanted to connect with me personally, you can find me on YouTube, on Instagram, on Twitter, and on TikTok at XOReni. That's XORENI. Or you can go on my website, renitheresource.com, and you can find me on any of those platforms. I respond to all my DMs. So hit me up on any of those. And I post every single, like 5 days a week. So there'll always be some great content there for you.
Amazing. Well, you heard it. You heard it here. Definitely check it out. Reni, thank you so much again for joining us and sharing your experiences. To our listeners, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Black Wealth Effect podcast.
Thanks for having me.
What was the one thing you heard today that inspires you to take action? Now plan to take that action in the next 24 hours. If you're looking for more support, ideas, or just want to connect with others like you taking action, join us in the Black Wealth Effect Facebook group. The link is in the show notes. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next time on the Black Wealth Effect podcast.